Life is bright. Oh, such a great and wonderful way to start this. Welcome to Breakthrough. But let me say it again. Life is bright. Do you agree or are you shocked? Most people are surprised when they hear this statement because they see life as the opposite. They see life as dreary, as bleak, empty, desolate, and unfair. As they are pushed hard by life's challenges and trials, they feel lost. They feel bewildered. Their eyes begin to see the dark clouds just hovering as darkness comes to cover what lies ahead in their lives. When this happens, they become wedged, jammed, unable to move forward, nowhere to go unless a flicker of light appears, even from a distance, giving a glimmer of hope, of eager anticipation, amidst the darkness that has covered their vision and allows them to believe in their hearts that there's a way out and a more compelling reason to live life. Let me ask you, have you ever had dark clouds cover your life? Or was there a time you hit rock bottom?
About 5 years ago, a really good friend of mine, her name is Dima, passed away in a car accident. Dima was the most positive, outgoing, spiritual, wise, knowledgeable person of her age I knew. And she was only 19. She loved poetry. She even wrote it. You could tell she wasn't just another regular person. She was very special, and everyone around her knew that. I also knew her family, her sister and mom, very loving and caring people. Where is God, I thought. Her death took a toll on me. A year later, her dad passed away, mugged and shot in Africa. It's like I was living in a nightmare. I started thinking about her family. How do they carry on living life like this? This family breaks my heart. Why do bad things happen to really good people, I thought.
I think the worst rock bottom was when I was struggling with my drug addiction. And there was a number of years where I was using casually, and I was involved in the lifestyle of selling drugs. I found myself getting hooked on these drugs. I was taking drugs to stay awake, and I was taking drugs to fall asleep. This was really difficult for me because in the beginning I realized I had a problem, but fast forward a couple of years, and it was the worst thing I could ever imagine because I could not break myself free from it. My quality of life was completely being taken away from me. I had no stability in my life. My relationships in my life were hurting. And with all the willpower I had inside of me, I couldn't break free from this.
If you had hit rock bottom at some point in your life, you would have thought that life was indeed unfair. In the media alone, we see and hear and read about a lot of people suffering. Lives of young people snuffed out by accidents or drugs. We see good people, even friends and family, dying in hospitals because of the pandemic and sickness. Innocent folks victimized and robbed by thieves. Teens raped and killed. On the other hand, broken relationships abound because of unfaithfulness, deceit, selfishness. One can just go on and on. And for the past many years of my life, I had come face to face with human suffering and had experienced the dark aspects of life through work and ministry. And for countless times, I had prayed over individuals with seemingly hopeless cases. I had wrapped my arms around and embraced, crying and grieving families who have lost loved ones. Such realities really discourages the heart. It disheartens the spirit. It deadens the sight and darkens our paths. You know, I believe that at some point in our lives, we encounter dark patches and what appears to be dead ends.
I found myself in a situation where I ended up being charged for the crimes I was committing, because I was involved in a lifestyle where I was trafficking in narcotics. And I think for myself, I had a lot of emotions because I was never really content with what I was doing, and a lot of guilt and shame. And then these substances came into play to help me cope with my reality. When I was charged, I was taken into jail for the first time in my life. I was only 24 years old. So some people would say, you know, maybe being in a jail cell was my rock bottom, but it actually wasn't, because that was the first time I was actually able to get some sleep and able to get some relief. I ended up spending 3 weeks in jail, and you know, I could finally be able to think again very clearly and realize the severity of my issues.
Dark thoughts started taking over my mind. I was angry at life and God and everything for the longest time. But then I started having hope, and it started when God called me to Him the first time in Medjugorje. Hope was my only chance I can get through this. I had hope that I will see Dima again someday, and my hope turned into faith after that. I started to read more, to get into the faith more deeper. And it took me some time to understand that we all have crosses to carry, and that we don't carry these crosses alone. Jesus carried the biggest cross for us to show us that He is with us, helping us every step of the way. He came to tell us life is not easy, that it's full of trials and hardships. Either we can choose to go through life without Him, which is unbearable, or ask Him to walk with us, because that's what He wants, and that's what I did. I asked Jesus to walk with me every day, and that's the only way I know how to get through life's hardships.
Let me share with you this actual analogy of how it's like to be surrounded and enveloped by physical darkness. You know, eons ago, I was tasked to take care of a group of journalists and opinion writers from well-known newspapers in the country. And the venue of the event was in a far-flung municipality in southern Philippines. It was the site of our model project we were working on and showcasing. So I'd like you to imagine with me. Try to picture it closely. You know, as that group of journalists arrived a day earlier of event date, they were looking for some adventure to make use of the lull time. And they learned about the cave trek. And obviously they felt challenged and wanted to do it. You know, the trek simply means entering a cave from one side of the mountain and exit on the other side. You know, I have never done it, but I've heard many things about it, including other people's scary yet courageous accounts of the experience. The entrance to the cave was very narrow and could fit just one person at a time. It was a downward slope on a pathway of natural rocks to serve as foothold, with only ropes on the side to guide your way in. And once you're inside, you were met with an eerie, pungent smell. And they say it's bats' droppings. And you could hardly see the top as it was very, very dark. You know, we had two guides, one in the front and the other at the rear, and both had flashlights on hand. And they said it would take about 2 hours to reach the other side. But a lot depends on how fast one can traverse the twists and turns, the upward, downward slopes, rocks, slippery portions, and flowing water. Not to mention the feeling of anxiety that something might go wrong. And added to that, was the darkness within the confines of the place. Hey, are you still with me? About midway, someone suggested we all stand closely together, turn off all the flashlights for about a minute to see how dark it was. And apparently, it was not for the faint-hearted. You couldn't see your hand, nor the face of the person in front of you. It was pitch black and eerie silence. You can just hear, occasional sounds and rushes coming from nowhere. And, at that point of time, I couldn't wait to see the light at the other end and the outside world. I was beginning to have claustrophobic feelings and couldn't wait to get out of that mountain's belly. Then, finally, after what seemed to be forever, a small ray of light appeared from a distance in the midst of black. And as we inched closer and closer, the spot became bigger and bigger. And at last, a breakthrough. A breakthrough from darkness. It was a welcome sight as we embraced the majestic sunshine, the light of day, the smell of fresh, sweet air. Then a heave of relief, feelings of accomplishment, exhilaration, conquest, and a quiet joy of overcoming. Someone once said, and I quote, "When your life is crazy and chaotic, don't despair. It has to be this way before a breakthrough." Like that cave trek, we go through chaotic, uncharted, unseen paths in our life's journey. We move along the twists and the turns of what comes before us, not knowing what and how the outcome will be. In the Gospel of Mark, we see a powerful story of faith, of hope, of healing. There was a blind man on the streets of Jericho. His name was Bartimaeus. Jericho was a bustling town that's 15 miles on the northeastern part of Jerusalem. And as it was nearing Passover, there were a lot of people passing through the city. And Bartimaeus would have stationed himself by the entrance of the city so people can see him and possibly give alms. All his life, this guy was living in darkness. All right, just imagine it. Imagine this. His dire situation. He cannot see. He cannot move freely. He cannot do anything. And to make it worse, during those days, there were no social services or welfare. He had to fend on his own. And the only way to do this, especially for blind people like him, was to beg. And think of his surroundings. That time, there were no pavements or cemented roads. He was probably being hit by all the natural elements, dirt, dust, decay, even dung from the animals passing through, donkeys, camels, horses, chicken, cattle that passed on this road. And imagine too, when it rains, all the walkways became muddy. I can also visualize his unkempt, dirty appearance, long beard, scrawny built, maybe from lack of food to eat. This guy was alone. This guy was vulnerable. He was shrouded in physical darkness. And I believe he was also living in fear, fearful of his vulnerability. And you know what? His only source of security was his cloak that he carried with him and sat on, as this is where people would drop their coins or food as he begged for it. This was the only way he could survive: beg for alms and food. Do you have this kind of fear in you? A weakness, a lack, or inadequacy that immobilizes you and renders you frozen? You know, it has been said that when someone loses a sight, another sense is heightened. It could be one sense of hearing, a touch, a smell, or taste. Again, I would imagine that Bartimaeus had a heightened sense of hearing. You know, as he sat down on that Jericho road day in, day out, he would have heard news and stories about the man Jesus and the miracles he performed. He would have heard also of Jesus healing other blind men in Bethsaida and near the pool of Siloam. Stories of signs and wonders done by Jesus easily spread fast during those times. And this is what Bartimaeus needed. That distant ray of light, that glimmer of hope, that faith and belief that if that other blind man was able to see, it could also happen to him. Until one day, he heard that this guy Jesus was passing by Jericho on his way to Jerusalem. You know, Bartimaeus prepared himself. It was one chance in his lifetime. This guy Jesus may not pass his way again. In his heart and in his mind, he had to seize this moment. It was now or never. You know, as I try to put myself in Bartimaeus' inner self, I can really feel his excitement, his resolve, his growing faith that he will see because of this man. And he also postured himself to make a move that will connect and be noticed by Jesus. See this? It was an intentional decision. Moreover, he had nothing to lose. How about you? Can you make this kind of intentional decision? When any opportunity to meet and encounter Jesus comes before you, would you? I'll leave this for you to ponder and answer.
I found myself in a treatment program where I got bailed out to. It was a Christian house, and that's where I learned about God. And I lived with 20 other people. A lot of them were from the streets, they were from jail, and they had, addiction issues as well. That's why we were all there. So some people might say, for me, sleeping on a couple of box springs and a mattress, that was the rock bottom. And it wasn't, because, it wasn't as bad as the vicious cycle of addiction. And, I was getting better. After 21 months of being in the house, I was able to rehabilitate myself. I got to learn who God was. I got to maintain my sobriety, help other people get sober, do a lot of events, a lot of speaking events actually. And and everything was looking good. But I still have undealt issues with my previous criminal convictions. So my sentencing came up. After being there for 21 months, I was sentenced to go to jail. So people would think people were worried for me. They're like, Ryan's been rehabilitated, he was a new man, and now he has to go back with the same people he got in trouble with the first time. But even though I went back there, I could have said in my faith journey, that was another rock bottom, but it really wasn't. It turned out to be something that helped me grow. Because me being reformed and my knowledge of God, of recovery, I was able to be honest about my story and my change, and I was able to talk to other inmates about how I did it and how I got out and why I got out. Some people listened, some people debated with me, and some people didn't really care. But ultimately, I was there on a purpose and a mission.
Let's continue and look deeper in this story. Just then, he heard a commotion, the many footsteps of a throng of people trotting on the road. Bartimaeus could hear many voices from the crowd, some saying, "It's this man Jesus passing by, give way, give way." To Bartimaeus, this was the moment. It was to call out. So he shouted, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And, upon hearing this, the crowd tried to silence him, hushed him up, rebuked him, and asked him to be quiet. Does this sound familiar to you? Was there a time you felt this too? How the world tells you to shut up, be silent, and made you feel that you won't be heard, that no one was gonna come for you. To some people, that kind of rebuke would have been enough to silence them, and thus they stay where they are, within their own secured place and comfort area. But not Bartimaeus. The louder he shouted, and he was shouting from the very depths of his soul, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And I believe he was calling Jesus in Hebrew, "Yeshua, Yeshua, bin David ya Rama Ali." Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. By calling out Jesus as Son of David, Bartimaeus was proclaiming Jesus' messianic lineage, which the crowd at that time would have understood. Then Jesus heard him. Jesus stopped, and he turned and asked that Bartimaeus be brought to him. Let's look at this scene for a while. As he heard the call of Bartimaeus, Jesus looked for him. It's as if Jesus was saying, "Hey, you are not insignificant. I heard you. You are valuable. You are valuable." And Bartimaeus, as the crowd called him out to come to Jesus, he stood up, left his most valuable possession, his cloak. It was probably the first time he parted with it. That was really a major decision he took, leaving his cloak with what alms he got for that day. And there's even a possibility that someone might even steal it. But to him, and in his heart, he knew something great will happen to him that day. And as he approached Jesus, Jesus asked him, "What is it you want me to do for you?" Wow, this just blew my mind. You can see how respectful Jesus was. Jesus did not assume, so he asked. If I were Bartimaeus, I would say, "Lord, isn't it obvious?" But no. Jesus had to ask. Who knows? Maybe Bartimaeus wanted alms or some food. And then the response, "Lord, I want to see. I want to be restored. I want to be made whole." Are these also the same words that are in your heart today and want to express? I want to see. I want to be restored. I want to be made whole. Then Jesus said, "Go your way. Your faith has made you well." And immediately, Bartimaeus regained his sight and followed Jesus.
I learned to believe in the strength and power of prayer. I believe that everyone's prayers for this family has made them so strong, able to go through life carrying this big of a cross. One thing I know is no normal person would be able to go through that without help. Help from a bigger power, from God. Even with this tragedy happening to this beautiful family, God is working in them. God never leaves, and Dima and her dad are not gone forever. We will absolutely see them again. They are with him now in a better place. And even her mom believes that and thanks God every day for everything. I am amazed at how strong her faith is. It makes my faith stronger every day.
Jesus is also asking you today, what is it you want me to do for you? What will your answer be? Can you identify with Bartimaeus in some ways? Where are you blind in your life? Are there hidden things that you keep that have pinned you down by the roadside? And what is your cloak? Are there things you are afraid to let go? Bartimaeus stood up, left his cloak, went to answer the call of Jesus, and was healed. You know, don't let dark patches of life create a greater darkness that covered the brightness in your life. Bartimaeus saw more in his heart. He believed that Jesus can save and heal him. He saw that miracle in him. And Jesus confirmed this when he said, "Your faith has made you well." Because you believed, the miracle of faith in you has saved you. And you know, some people say that Bartimaeus was a blind man with a 20/20 vision. It's true in some sense, as he saw more deeply than the others in his time. He saw in his heart what he really needed and who he can get it from. And he acted on it. He called and was heard. Friends, like life, we encounter periods of darkness, uncertainties, rock bottoms, insurmountable challenges, and sinful episodes that blur our vision and fog our direction. Through all these, we need breakthroughs from our addictions, sinfulness in our relationships, and most importantly, in our faith. And when the dust finally settles, we see what we only need: the brightness of Jesus burning in our hearts. A miracle that is within us, waiting to be awakened. Then, and only then, our spiritual eyes will be open to recognize the beauty of who we are and what we were meant to be. Then, restoration happens. And like Bartimaeus, are you ready to shout and call out to Jesus? To stand up and leave what's keeping you down? To believe that there's a miracle in you waiting to be evoked, to be unfolded, unraveled? That miracle of faith residing in you about the one who heals, the one who forgives, the one who provides, and most of all, the one who loves the most. Jesus. And like Bartimaeus, he followed him for the rest of his life and became a disciple. Would you follow Jesus? Would you be his disciple? Pray that your spiritual eyes be opened. Call out to Him today, let me pray for you. And in the silence of your heart and the depth of your soul, call out to Jesus as Bartimaeus did. Lord, I just pray for those who are listening today that your Spirit will be with them, that you may make their spiritual eyes be opened to embrace the fullness of what you can provide. Give them the grace to realize this in their lives. Lord, I pray that your mighty Spirit will always be with them to open up their heart and especially their souls to you, our Lord Jesus. Keep them always close to you. In Jesus' name, amen. And let that miracle that is in them be awakened, unraveled, and unfolded. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Lord, I know you're listening to my every word. You hear me in my silence, my every whisper, everything that's broken, every missing piece. For I know once you've spoken, you giving us your peace. I come to you with everything that I am, with only my empty hands, lifted high and surrender. I lay down my life in your hands. Take over my heart, take over my soul. You're making me new, you're making me whole. I know that you're near, God, you are here. Let my faith be above every fear. You know my heart completely. Every anxious thought. Change me, Lord, and mold me. Lead me to your heart. I come to you with everything that I am, with only my empty hands, lifted high and surrender. My God, forever you reign. Take over my heart, take over my soul. You're making me new, you're making me whole. I know that you're near, God, you are here. Let my faith